So, yes, do I have some questions? Yeah, I do. I have questions, right? But if you've seen it before, Amanda, it's kind of just free form. We're just going to go after it, and we may end up talking about Chris Rock getting the shit smacked out of him at some point. I don't know. I don't want to start with that, but who knows? We might go down that path, right? I don't want to put any constraints on it. So, anyway, so we're live, and first of all, I just want to say thank you, Amanda, for joining us. For the listeners out there, watchers, whatever, today Matt and I on the TXN Connection are blessed with the presence of the audacious Black girl, right? Herself. And Amanda, if you don't mind, as we get started, can you just kind of give us your credentials and tell us a little bit about yourself to frame the conversation?
Yes, awesome. So thank you for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you both. I love talking about self-care and any other thing we get into. But yes, I'm Amanda. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, so AKA a therapist. I currently work for the U.S. Coast Guard. I worked prior with the Navy as a therapist. The Coast Guard, I don't work as a therapist, but I do provide therapy for college students through Timely MD. So I do some contract with them, and I absolutely love it. I love working with just anyone in transition. I love the transition period of life, and helping guide people through that is what I love to do. I also have my platform called The Audacious Black Girl. I have a podcast, I have an Instagram, I'm creating workshops, and it really is all about empowerment and healing for Black women. And I just really passionate about just supporting women on their audacious journey. So, and my husband's Aaron. You had your podcast with him the other week. A little something about him. But yeah, that's my boo. But yes, and here we are. So thank you for having me again,
Amanda. So you may be familiar. This thing that Matt and I do is called the TXN Connection. We thought it was pretty clever. My daughters laugh at it. Boom! There we go. We got hats and everything, right?
There we go.
Yeah.
Love it.
So when we started this kind of branch off of the Rising Sun podcast, the idea was to, I think, number one, Matt and I just wanted to have a space where we could talk shit and keep up kind of thing, right? But it kind of started morphing into this thing where Matt hit me up on Messenger. He was like, "Hey, dude, we should talk about what was it the first time, Matt? It was
meaningful male relationships."
Yeah. He was like, "Hey, dude, I was out at dinner with my wife last night, and she was like, you never do any me time, and why is it so hard for you to make friends?" And so he hit me up, and I was like, I know somebody that might can help us with that. And so we did a quick Zoom call before we did the last TXN Connection. Yeah. So I just want to thank you for that before we get started tonight. Sorry. Just for everybody that may be watching or listening, it is 9 p.m. in Japan. It's 8 Eastern, right?
AM
and
Eastern.
7 Central. So
yes.
We're kind of all over the place tonight. Anyway, so I think so. Just to get started, what we were going to talk about tonight. So, Matt, can you kind of just bring us in because like I said, this kind of got generated from a conversation that you and Desiree were having, right?
Right. Yeah. And we were just I don't know. We're talking about all kinds of stuff, but we just started talking about meaningful relationships and how that kind of ties into personal time and how you kind of divvy up your time and your energy. And she said something to me. She said, you don't really care about yourself. And I was like, what are you talking about? You realize the ego I have? You thought you didn't care about myself? Of course I care about myself. She's like, no, but you never do anything. You never go anywhere. You never go to the gym. You don't really take care of yourself. You're not worried about yourself because you're too worried about all the other things, all the other responsibilities that you have in life, family, business, getting the girls here and there, and, just all the things that life has. And it really got me thinking. I was like, you know what? My version of me time is, me doing this podcast, or me, being in my office working on things, or just being away from other people. And that's not really, I think, what the definition of self-care would be. It's certainly alone time, but it's not me time, right? So, yeah. So that's kind of where this all
goes. Yeah. I think as Matt and I, we talked after we talked to you, Amanda, and we were kind of talking about this whole thing, like, and I'm trying not to make general statements, so I'll just talk about like myself, and so for me time is literally me time. Like, I'm not around anybody, and I'm like, maybe I'm reading a book, but I'm probably watching Netflix, and who knows, I might be taking a nap. Or maybe I'm going to the gym, but like when I think of me time, it is, or like self-care, I guess, right? It's like being detached and away from people, right? Is that like a common thing that you hear?
But I also think
what is self-care?
Self-care? You know what I mean? And how we all define self-care personally. Your self-care can be, you know what, I'm just detaching from everyone. I'm just going to sit here and watch Netflix or whatever it might be. But self-care, the way I define it is, it's just self-preservation.
What are you doing?
So what are you doing to preserve yourself so you can actually get out there and do the work that you need and want to do, right? So taking the girls, like, you were saying, Matt, all over the place, and working on your work, and Dean, same for you, right? So what are those practices that you're doing so that you can actually do those things, right? Because you will run yourself ragged if you keep going and going and going. So if it's disconnecting from people because you're around people all the time, especially as leaders, we're around people all the time. Sometimes that takes so much energy out of some of us. I'm an introvert. Well, somewhere in the middle. So when I do have to lean very heavily into the extroverted nature of myself when I'm speaking or presentations, I'm gone. I'm ghost for like at least 2-3 days. Don't talk to me, right? Because you need to recover. I need to preserve so that I can get back out there. You know what I mean? So I think it's important individually to just acknowledge, what does that look like for you? How can you preserve yourself so you can continue to do what you do?
So I guess you being, a therapist, social worker, and with all your expertise, how would you actually define self-care? Like I have this idea of what I think it is, but like, how would you define it?
Mm-hmm.
I think just like I was saying, like self-preservation, and I feel like I always view things somewhat like as I don't know, I'm not good with like math or diagrams, but like having like self-care up here, right? Like this is the title, and then underneath that are all the things that you do. Right. And it can be going to the gym. It can be, like I said, detaching. It can be lighting a candle and taking your shower, but when it comes to actually practicing self-care, I told you all before, like I'm such a believer in like micro practices, right? What are those things that you sprinkle throughout your day so that you can, feel okay? Because some people define self-care as, all right, getting a massage. Great, fantastic. But how often are you doing that? Like how much of a routine is that for you? Because that becomes the problem. You have all these grand ideas, but if it's not a part of your routine, if you're not finding harmony, right? I don't talk work-life balance. I talk about harmony. If you can't just make it flow, you're not going to do the thing.
I do.
You know what I mean? So this is where micro practices can be helpful because you're just sprinkling it throughout your day, and you can make a routine out of that. So say getting up in the morning and meditating or working out or journaling or doing a little check-in. That's a micro practice, right? It's not going to take that much energy out of you. Other things, like I said, lighting a candle when you take a shower, having some scents going. This is just me and my curly self. Having some scents going, little things like that, like going outside on your lunch break, getting out of whatever space you're in, and getting some air, getting some sun. So I think it is. Little things that you can do, micro things you can do to really practice self-care.
I really like that idea of we talked about it before, but nobody's privy to that conversation, right? But this idea of micro practices, right? You know, just was really appealing to me. Like if I take 5 minutes and just detach and like do something, right? Like, you know what, man?
Yeah.
I'm going to go I do smoke, so I'm going to go take a smoke break. I know smoking is not self-care. I got it, right? But at least you do it outside.
For someone it is. For someone it is.
You know, but the same idea of taking a smoke break, right? Like I'm going to go like detach for a moment, right? I'll walk around the building or go out and get some fresh air, look at the sky, whatever. Like that would be kind of a macro practice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Any little thing that you can incorporate into your daily life. Daily. You know what I mean? It's not just something you reserve for the weekend. Now you can have like a big thing planned, right? For like a certain day, but now you're holding out for that and you're suffering every day because I have to wait until the 17th when I have this thing that I'm going to do while every day you're just struggling. You know what I mean?
I do.
But yeah.
So I started. I just get up earlier, and you know, an hour, maybe sometimes 2 hours, depending on the time I wake up. Just to myself, and you know, at first, it was like it was nice to just have that time of complete quiet. Right, nobody's up. I don't have to make anybody breakfast. I don't have to do, you know, anything. But then it got to the point where I was like, I'm not really doing anything. Like, I'm literally scrolling on Facebook or like reading Reddit articles or whatever, which is like, it's fine. But that was also part of the conversation with my wife is like, well, like the time that you do take, like, what are you doing with it? Right. And I'm probably not maximizing or, you know, I don't want to say being productive because you don't always have to be productive, but, you know, we have a finite amount of time every day or in life. And so, so yeah, I've recently tried to, you know, start reading my Bible or, you know, just taking time to be more intentional with that, like decompressing. And, I know for me, I can be content with just like not doing anything, right? Like not doing a damn thing. And that feels counterintuitive to me just because I'm always doing something. But trying to find like meaningful things to do even in that downtime is something I've been trying to work on. But
I love that you said that being intentional about your self-care. Not that I don't think anything is wrong with, you know, scrolling on your Instagram or Reddit or whatnot, because you're getting something from it. It's just you know, kind of zoning out, so to speak. And sometimes we need those moments. It's when you're just in that loop of it and you're feeling like, all right, I don't feel any better after scrolling Instagram, after, you know what I mean? And really just being curious and asking, is this practice that I'm doing, like you were curious about, is this practice that I'm doing actually feeding me in some way? Is it actually helping me in some way? It could be, because maybe you're getting some knowledge or whatever it might be. But really asking yourself with whatever thing you define as self-care, how is this assisting me? How is it going to help me be better? How is it going to help me do my job or take care of my children or all these things better? And, you know, once you really question that, then you can become intentional, like you're saying about your self-care, because you want it to work for you. You know what I mean? You want it to be something that you need that's going to actually assist you in doing all the other things.
Yeah. Really hit it on the head. You know, how is this benefiting me, right? Like, what is the outcome of this time that I'm spending, right? And like I said, it doesn't have to be a productivity rubric, right? But it does need to be a quality rubric, right? Like, did what I just did I just waste time? Right. And so
improve you. Improve you. Like, how did it improve you in any way? You know what I mean? It couldn't, like I said, even scrolling we get caught in these loops. Like if you're like, I don't know if you go on TikTok sometimes, my daughter is always sending me TikToks. And then I'll like, another recipe, right? But hey, I'm getting some recipes out of it. However, if I'm on there and it's like, oh shoot, it's been an hour. I really have some things I needed to do. Like, it doesn't feel fulfilling. You know what I mean? Maybe 15 minutes would have been fulfilling enough.
Let me tell you something. I watched a video today. I don't know who put it up, but it was a bulldog turning front flips on a trampoline. And I probably watched it. It was like a 30-second clip, and I probably watched it for 15 minutes a day because it was
that's hilarious,
amazing. Like I think I saved the video, and I was like, oh, look at it. Like, it's the funniest thing, man. I'll send it to y'all later, right? Like, oh my God, it was good, right?
I love it.
Like, it's exactly what you think it is too. It's a damn bulldog turning front flips on a trampoline, like just how you pictured it in your head. That's what it was, right? But anyways, Amanda, so.
But isn't that a micro?
I feel like it is. You see how
you taking that 30 seconds.
I lit up when I started talking about it, right? Because it made me so happy.
You lit up. It put you in a good space, right? Like, that's a micro practice. Like, I'm really outside the box of whatever people might think things are, so to speak, sometimes. But if that 30 seconds gave you that much joy that you sat there and watched it a million more times, now you're able to go about your day. There you go. Now you're able to go about your day in a better space, in a better mental space, because you had a really fantastic laugh. That's self-care. That's a micro practice.
I think maybe it's, I don't know, man, like kind of keying on something that Matt said and that you said. You know, I don't think this is gender specific necessarily, but, but it certainly is a thing, right? That you want to maximize your time, right? And you feel like you're wasting time. You feel like you're not being productive when you're doing something like watching a bulldog turn front flips on a trampoline, or, I don't know, going for a 45-minute walk when I could get another 30 minutes of sleep before work, or whatever that micro practice is, right? Like, I feel like maybe society, or maybe the way that we feel like we should behave or conduct ourselves prevents us from doing these micro practices sometimes, because, like Matt said, it feels like we're not being productive, like we're wasting our time, kind of thing. Yeah.
And I think, like you're saying, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be gender specific. I think it's something that a lot of people feel like all of us have been conditioned to, and all of us in the United States have been conditioned to be productive all the time, always doing something. And rest is not a priority. Self-care isn't a priority. You know what I mean? So, having that level of information and kind of, asking yourself, okay, how have I been conditioned to not prioritize my care, my rest? Because guess what? It's affecting you. How's your back? How are your knees? How's your head space? How's your heart space? How's the people you interact and engage with, right? If you're not pouring into yourself, everything else is going to be affected. You know what I mean? But we are conditioned in that way to think productivity. But I do think, because I do work with a lot of male clients who self-care, like the thought of it, they're like, Manda, what are you talking about? I got stuff to do. I'm like, okay, well, how are you continuing to do those things? Because you're coming to me now. You're coming to me for a reason. So clearly something's going on, right? You know what I mean? But I think men especially have been conditioned with that mind. Well, conditioned, yes, but not conditioned not to think about self-care in the way that I think it's marketed toward women. You know what I mean? People that identify perhaps as women. I think it's just marketed very differently. And we talked before about force and flow, where for men, it's for men, it's the force, right? Do. And for women with that feminine energy, and everyone, no matter how you identify, we all have masculine and feminine energy. It's just when it's not in harmony is when we experience issues and experience challenges. If we push as men, right, if you push that feminine energy to whatever way you think about it, that flow aspect of it out of your mind and out of your space, you're constantly operating in force, and you're constantly doing, and you're not flowing, you're not being, you're not just chilling and just allowing yourself to just work on whatever it is you need to fulfill yourself. So I think we all have those energies, but we really have to find the harmony, not balance, the harmony in those things. And it's okay to feel like you're have more masculine energy than feminine energy, but it still can work in harmony so that you can practice those self-care practices and not push all the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Siestas. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's nap time. Yeah.
Kind of a powerful thing to kind of think about for a minute and say,
yeah,
other people have kind of figured this part of life out, that like you don't always have to be producing, right? You don't always have to be operating at the maximum, level. And sometimes you need to take it back down so that you can get back to maximum. Because, like you said, if you're always
exactly,
you're always going, eventually you're gonna stop, right? And and it's probably not gonna be a pretty moment, whenever you snap or whenever
it's gonna catch up to you.
I've certainly experienced that multiple times throughout life where, it just kind of catches up with you and it's not good. And so, slowing it down a little bit and doing those practices.
Slow it down. And exactly. And it takes, I think, these kind of conversations we're having here. Yes, I'm a woman talking to two men about self-care, but it takes
before you continue,
men.
I just want to say this. Like, this is going to be a clip. I don't give a damn. I'm putting it out there right now. This is going to be a clip. Like, two white dudes with the host of the Audacious Black Girl talking about self-care. Let's fucking go.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry. Continue.
But, we can definitely explore reasons for that, right? I think as a Black woman, I'm embracing it more because culturally for me and my community, practicing self-care and rest, it's radical for many of us now. That's why it's been radical, and that's why many of us are doing it now. That's why I promote it on my platform. So being able to speak about this on a larger level is just a privilege for me. But I do think it takes men like both of you having this conversation and other men listening to it and just kind of going, maybe that is something I need to think about. Maybe that is something I need to practice. Because, like I said, I work with a lot of men who are enforced all the time, all the time, doing all the things, literally complaining to me about, I don't have time for this or time for that. You're not making time. You have to create the time. It's not going to come to you. Things aren't just going to stop, but you have the power to create the time. That's it. And once you kind of shift your mindset to that, then you can start seeing where you have the space to do that. That's when you can find the harmony in your practices, right? And not the balance. And the reason why I always say I don't like talking about, let's find the balance. No, because if you have the scales, that means you take it from here to there. That feels like force to me. Right? That feels like I'm taking from here. That feels like force. That don't feel like flow. Harmony is just that letting things just come together. You know what I mean?
So this idea of flow, right? So, I'm basically half Japanese at this point. I think everybody knows this because I've lived here for so long, right? My kids are half Japanese, but anyways, so if you look at Japan, so this idea of self-care, whether it's onsens, like public bathhouses are very common. I mean, it's part of the culture that 2 or 3 times per week, you're going to go sit in hot baths, sauna, cold bath, and spend a couple hours in there and relax. Or even if you're on the base, you'll see where the workers at lunchtime, they might be out throwing the baseball, just for 30 minutes, right? Like they have their lunch, they throw the baseball, or maybe they take like a 20-minute nap, between their shifts. And it like Matt was talking about, in Spain, like, hey man, Like, don't talk to me 11 till like 1 because I'm going to be asleep, right? I'm going to have a big lunch and I'm going to go to bed, right?
Yeah.
And I think that,
and it's acceptable.
So, American culture has not figured out some of the things that some cultures that are much, longer than we are historically. Mm-hmm. We haven't really figured out this idea of self-care, I don't think. And the other thing I just kind of wanted to reframe, I want to verbalize it so it makes sense to me. So this idea of flow, when I hear balance, it's like you said, like you're taking one, the scales, right? Inevitably, it's never, it's not going to be equal. It's never going to be equal. And so if you just give up hope of it being equal and just understand that it's evolving all the time, then it puts you in a better place so that you can accept like that. Sometimes it's super heavy over here and sometimes it's kind of light over here, and that's okay. Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. It is always evolving. You're just like your day changes every single day. Like your self-care is going to change every day. Some days you're going to be able to light that candle when you go in the shower, or sometimes it's like you might be in a rush. But hey, when I go to my office, if I have an office, I know I have, my peppermint scent going on, my lavender scent. You know what I mean? It's just not getting so wrapped up in making those practices like, you know what I mean? Yes, you want to sometimes have like a routine, but be open to the fact that sometimes it's not going to work out that way, but you can still choose to do it in another way. You can still choose to fit it into your day some other way. Morning routines are fantastic because they kind of set your day, get your day started. However, if it's a crazy morning, like if your kid has woken up like 3 times the night before and you can't even get into that space to do your journaling or workout, okay, just accept that. Meet yourself where you are. That's where I am right now. I'm not in that space. However, I do know that my self-care matters to me. How can I add this into my day later on? Click, you know what? I'm going to go take a walk at lunch. I'm going to go take a 10-minute walk. Right. At 10 o'clock, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to make sure I have music going. I'm going to play my favorite album on my drive to work. There's different ways you can do it, so it's not so regimented. And that is, like I said, evolving and more flow.
I think you said that a minute ago, in talking to people who come to you, men who come to you, and they have all the things going on. And the thing about space is it's going to fill up with whatever you let it fill up with, right? Your daily space, right? And being intentional, like you said, whether it's playing your favorite album or lighting that candle. My wife's going to have questions when I light this candle tonight when I take my shower.
Tell her I sent you. Tell her I said it was okay.
Well, so Manda told me I needed to light a candle. Who's Manda? Watch the podcast. I don't know what to tell you.
Hang out for a couple of days. Watch that.
Yeah. Different ways you can do it. And even as we were talking about culturally, I love culture. Like I love just how other people, how other people live and like kind of understanding their practices. So even like somewhere in Spain or maybe even Italy, like when they have like dinner, like they might eat dinner late because everyone is kind of going about their day. But they're making their dinner at home a lot of the time with their family, perhaps, or at least they're making sure they all sit down together to eat their dinner, because that's self-care too, it can be. And then really taking time to eat dinner. Take the time to eat dinner, because I forgot who I was like on YouTube watching this person who he went to Spain and learning all these practices, and he's with like a host family and he's American, and it took him some time to go, oh my gosh, like this is different, because they wanted him to sit down for dinner for a couple of hours and he was just like, what is this, right? But that's how you decompress, right? Because you're talking to family, you're getting all that out of you, you're getting your day out of you, and then you can go rest. So even I think us in our culture, if there's something about other cultures, like stop thinking that we know it all. Stop thinking like this is where it's at, and really, okay, what are other people doing? How can I incorporate that into my life? Can I sit down for dinner with my family for longer than 30 minutes and like actually have a conversation and not be in a rush? or whatever it might be. I think that's something that people can try too. Like, what are other people doing? How can I incorporate those things into my own life, especially if you don't know where to start?
I mean, was it like 2011? I think it was like 2011.
Say it again.
I was thinking back when I went to Japan and visited Dean. I think it was like 2011. There are still cultural lessons that I've taken away from that trip. Just seeing how life operates in a completely different country, not some country in North America where we're all kind of homogenous in how we do things, like completely different, right? Like complete, like 180 from American train of thought on how you interact with other members of society. And I think it's important to get that perspective, right? If people can travel and people can go to other countries and spend like a considerable amount of time kind of soaking it up and paying attention, there's lots of lessons to be learned, like you said, Dean, from cultures that are eons older than us. Right?
So much. So much. Even when I think about when I was in Japan, karaoke and izakayas, like they're open daily. They're open daily and they're packed. They're packed. So even after they're working, they're going to these places. Yeah, the weekends are going to be a little bit more popping, right? But they're going to these places and they're sitting down and they're eating. They're enjoying other people's company. They're singing their hearts out at karaoke because, Lord of mercy, you can hear them in the other room. But like it's just this sense of really, all right, let me decompress because I'm just as hard as you work, because Japanese, natives people, they work so hard, but I feel like their fun time is just as hard, right? So the amount of effort you put out, your self-care, your practices need to be on that same level. Like, stop thinking, all right, I'm gonna do this one thing and then do a million things, productive wise or force wise, and do the one flow activity. No, your self-care practices need to be just as big and as hard as those things as well.
That's an interesting concept, is that this should not sound radical, but it does. I should give as much attention to myself and my well-being as I do to my job and my whatever responsibilities I have.
Exactly.
That sounds crazy coming out of my mouth, but I know it's true. Right? Yeah.
It's true.
I kind of want to go back to something you mentioned,
but it takes time to get there.
So, but I just want to comment because I know it's true. So, you kind of know my family composition, maybe through Aaron, my family in Louisiana, my stepmom, is a Black woman. And man, like what you said, that it's radical for Black women to like practice self-care. I've seen that my whole life. I think it's radical for a lot of women, but specifically for Black women to like say, you know what, like I need to take care of myself, because it like culturally, and I've seen it firsthand with my mom, it's about, I need to take care of, the family, at large, the community, and like the very last person that's considered is self. And I've seen that firsthand. So I don't know, how is that being received on your end?
I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you saying that, because it's something I do speak on, because it does come down to, as a Black woman, I'll talk about my own experiences, like who and what I see is, if we haven't seen our mothers doing it, if we haven't seen our aunties or our grandmothers doing it, you essentially, it's just generationally passed down that you put everyone else before you. You take all the shit, right? You take all the stuff and you don't prioritize yourself, because it's just not something you do. Your family comes first. Right. But I think we're in this space now where we're going, you know what? We do have the right to take care of ourselves. We do have the right to, and it's radical in the way that we're able to just accept the fact that this should be a part of our lives. It shouldn't be something we have to earn. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to work so damn hard and earn my self-care. and this conditioning or the language that I have, or these learned behaviors that many of us have, no matter who we are, but I talk about myself as a Black woman, about self-care, about just taking care of yourself and feeding yourself first above all, right? Because it's just, and for me personally, it's, oh man, like me and Aaron, we've been together for 18 years, married for 16. And I know when we first got married, like I tell people all the time, the first few years were like a blur because I was just in go mode. I was just mom mode, wife mode, doing every single thing for them because I thought that is what I was supposed to do. That's what I saw my mom doing. I saw my grandma taking care of everybody, everyone's kids. I thought this is what it was supposed to be. And it took something, like it took me literally like being on the stairs crying from overwhelm and Aaron coming in the door from work going, what can we do? Like, let's figure this out. You know what I mean? For me to go, yeah, I'm not Amanda. I'm not taking care of myself. So it does speak to that level of conditioning and then that somewhat breaking point you have to have. But I do love that as a Black woman, what I'm seeing from other Black women and women of color in general is that we're like, like, fuck that. Like, we're taking care of ourselves. And we deserve to do that. We deserve to change that narrative.
My wife had a similar experience, right? And it wasn't that long ago where she was just like, I'm just give, do for every, I mean, she cleans up after everybody. She does the laundry, she takes care of our household, right? And while I'm out chasing big dreams and, go, she's taking care of all of us. And she got to the point where she was very intentional and very direct about, no, fuck y'all for a minute. I'm going to go do my Pilates class, and I'm not asking you if it's a good time for you. I'll be gone from 9 to 10. I was like,
fuck that.
And
no.
I was being empathetic and hearing where she was coming from, and like, it wasn't until we had that conversation a few weeks ago where I started thinking about, okay, she got to that point in her life. When am I going to get to that point in my life, right? When am I going to get to the point where I don't feel about, going and doing whatever I want to do, right? Where I'm just like, you know what? I'll be back. I love y'all. I'll be back. And that's hard. I think that's hard for probably a lot of men to do. Especially men with families. Is
I think so.
Come to terms with the fact that it's okay to focus on yourself, even if it's inconvenient for the others around you.
It is.
Because it's not always going to line up, right? Like, that's part of being focused on yourself.
Yeah. There's never going to be a right time. This is why I say you have to create the time, right? And then the moment you kind of, just how you, as you were saying, like you were thinking, when am I going to hit my rock bottom, so to speak, and have that moment? I'm like, fuck y'all, I'm doing what I need to do. You already recognize it, so make the choice. You already see it. Yeah. And that's the thing. People forget they have the choice. You have the choice, but you're not choosing the choice. But you're not choosing the choice. You're choosing to go in autopilot. You're choosing to continue to suffer. You're choosing to continue to live your day after day, suffering and feeling like crap because you're not choosing the choice, because you recognize something needs to happen, right? You recognize that I am running myself ragged to the point where I'm in bed and I'm still going, right? You recognize that, but you don't want to do anything about it. And I tell people all the time, like my clinical clients, there is no magic wand.
Yeah.
There's no magic wand.
Nobody's coming to save you.
There's nothing that's like, boop. No one's coming to save you. There's no, and it's all better. You need to put that work in. You need to put that work in and understand that life is a practice and you get better at what you do.
Yeah.
So continue to choose the choice.
I think
continue to practice.
And I think back on my dad, and I think we probably all look at our dads, male figure in our life, and like they all did get to that point, right? They're like, I'll see y'all later, and you wouldn't see them for the weekend because they were going hunting or fishing or whatever, right? And it kind of speaks to that thing that you talk about where, we were talking about these micro practices. If you do it all the time, then you don't hit that point where you're like, you know what? I can't be around y'all right now and I need a few days. Like, maybe you just need an afternoon instead. Like, all right. I'm going to do something for the afternoon. I'm not going to be like out for 4 days kind of thing, right? So, yeah. You might see Dad.
Sure. I mean, I will say this. That's, my father, he even as I got older, started reflecting, I realized he really prioritized self-care. He loves riding his Cadillac, and he's, born in the 50s, just amazing man. He rides around the city in his Cadillac. You know what I mean? He loves it. And he's always done that. And, even growing up, he loved his cars. He loved biking, so he would bike all the time. And his knees got bad, then he couldn't anymore. But he was the one that I saw doing practicing self-care. He was the one I saw slowing down. I didn't see that from my mom. I saw it from my dad, but it didn't click to me that I had permission as a woman to do that because I didn't see my mom doing it. I thought, okay, because men work so hard, they are deserving of that. And as a woman, I'm supposed to go. Like I'm not supposed to, right? I'm not supposed to. So it just didn't relate. It just didn't click. But I think for men to see other men doing that is beautiful. But I also want them to recognize and see what have the women in my life been doing. Have I seen my partner, if my partner identifies as a woman, have I seen her take care of herself? Have I seen my mother? If not, can you take it on yourself to say, hey, I want to have a conversation with you, and how can I support you in your self-care, right? Can you say that to your spouse? Can you say, wow, like I've seen you, like how Aaron came to me, it's like, what can we do? Right? I've seen you pushing. I've seen you doing all these things. One, I need to take a step back. You need to recognize she's been pushing. You need to recognize that she's been doing all the damn things. And you may think that she's happy to do that shit. She is not. She is not. She's doing it because she feels like she has to. No one. She's doing it because she feels like she has to. She's doing it because she feels obligated. She's also been conditioned. But can you, as a man who is with the woman, say to her, you've been doing a lot. And I want us to find a harmony in our relationship where you're not doing all the things.
That word again, right?
Let's find the harmony.
Harmony.
Yes. There's that word, right? Because then that harmony will allow her space to take care of herself and you space to take care of yourself, right? Because you're both in the same, I need to be productive, I need to do all these things, and you're not meeting somewhere to find the harmony in the productivity, the harmony in the self-care. So it is an act of like coming together and having that conversation and giving each other that space to say, just like your wife, Matt, said, where's your friends at? Like, why you don't take care of yourself, right? And that made you go, oh, shoot. That's what it takes.
Like, damn.
And here we are, right?
Literally around.
Yeah.
But, I had a terrible role model in my dad as far as like self-care, because his self-care, not that sounds bad, my dad's awesome, but he works all the time. Like he's 70-something, 75 years old. He just bought a 30-acre farm like a few years ago, right? They got cows. I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? But like, he would just go out in the shop and just work on things. It didn't matter if it was building a deer blind or building he's an engineer, so building whatever contraption he was working on that weekend. He was just always outside in the shop. And I realized that now that was his me time. Like he enjoyed having the radio on, whistling whatever while he was working and building something, even if we joke about it because like, he'll spend 3 months designing, planning, and building something that he literally could have gone to Academy and bought for like $300. And it's just like, what you do, Dad? But that's his outlet, right? And like, but to me, growing up,
that was his outlet.
And I've just recently realized this, like to me, growing up like that, it was an example of like always be working, always be doing something productive, and probably a product of his upbringing. You know, he grew up on a farm and was the oldest of all the kids, and you know, had to do all the things while everybody else was being a kid. So that just carried with him through life. But I really want to I mean, it would be awesome if I had a shop to go work in, right? And that would probably become my me time, because it would feel like harmonious exchange of productivity and downtime, right? And the only thing I feel myself kind of gravitating to is like going to the gym, which I hate. So, you know.
Yeah. But, you know, I love what you're saying about your father, because, you know, he was productive, but it also, you are recognizing perhaps that was his me time. We need to stop operating in that, you know, in the binary space and thinking, oh, dad is only doing these things, or I'm only doing this thing, or she's only doing these things because it's productive. It can also be self-care for them, right? So that's operating in that and space, in that middle space. And like you were recognizing that, he worked really hard in this thing and he was always doing that. He was productive, but also it was his self-care time. Right. It's okay to have that as well. It's okay to like be working like on a passion project and that be your self-care time. You know what I mean? So this is where I talk about being like, I'm not like inside whatever box people think about self-care, because you can, it's going to suit you differently. It's going to fit you differently. But I love that example, Matt. The harmony. Yeah. Yeah.
Do another thing. He was combining the things to, you know, kind of turn it into his music.
Yeah. But can I ask you, Matt, what was your mother doing at that time?
So
like when dad was like working on all those things
in the house doing,
like when dad was in the shop, what was your mom doing?
In the house, like, you know, just taking care of the house and, you know, doing whatever it was she was doing. I was usually outside with him, you know, or in my room doing my own thing.
Okay. So do you see your, I don't want to use ableist language and say blind spot, but do you see that area that you didn't see? That mom, you were with dad, so you don't know what mom was doing. Dad's out here doing this self-care practice, productivity practice, but I have no idea what mom was doing. Mom was in the house probably cooking, cleaning, and that could be her self-care. I'm not going to say it couldn't be, but you don't know what she was doing, which is why when you grow into an adult man and you perhaps marry a woman, you don't know what the hell she's doing. You have no idea. You haven't been conditioned to see what she's been doing. You haven't been conditioned to see that she's been working her ass off. The reason why, like, that little corner is clean, or the reason why that spider web is out the corner is because she saw it. She removed it before you even saw it, right? So I think we all have those spots that we don't see in people. But we've all been conditioned in that way. I'm outside with dad. I don't know what the hell mom's doing. No idea. But she in there doing something. And I know when I come back in, I'm going to have a meal.
Yeah.
When I come back in, I'm going to have a meal. When I come back in, it's going to be some lemonade. That's what she's doing. She's thinking about your ass. She's thinking about dad and caring for you. But we've all been conditioned in that way to not.
I'll tell you, man, kind of like you guys, man, to like mommy and I, this year will be 19 years. It's crazy to think about, right? Like married 19, wow. So 20. So I got to like
a long time.
Start thinking about anniversary gift for next year. But anyways,
I think you should already be on that, but okay.
But I guess my point is that, you know, I'll be totally upfront. Like, I didn't think about, you know, mommy's me time probably the first 10 years of our marriage, because I was just thinking about work and let me make this money and let me promote, and like I need to do as much as I can to, you know, secure a future for us, and you know, let me get these kids going, and probably in the last 10 years, you know, almost maybe 9 years, it's become this thing where like mommy and I like respect each other's space when it comes to that, like big time, man. Like, I know she's going to get a deep tissue massage once a month. I know she's going to go do things with her friends, and I don't even question it. Right. Because she's not, she's not like pushing the limits. You know what I mean? Like, she's like, I'm going to go do these things. And she knows that, all right, well, I'm going to go do these things. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to play in intramural sports. I'm going to go hang out with my friends, a couple times a month kind of thing. And we've kind of gotten to this place where it is harmonious. Right. And I think that I just keep going back to this because it makes so much sense to me, especially in a marriage where like marriage relationship, you're like hardwired to think of it as a balance. And like, you think I'm doing more for this relationship than the other person is. And but then the longer you're with somebody, then you realize that, sometimes you are going to do a lot more. Right. And maybe consistently over time, you're going to do more in one category. Maybe that's making money for the family, or maybe that's being emotionally available for your kids, right? Or whatever it is. Like, maybe this is what you do more of, but this is what that other person does more of. And so it's harmonious, right? Like, we have our part to play, and it's not going to be equal necessarily. It's just going to fit, right?
Yeah, it's just gonna fit. Yeah, and it's also like you said, for 10 years you didn't realize that she needed self-care or needed to practice those things because we don't have conversations about it. We don't have conversations about our roles. We just get married and go into it. All right, I'm wife now. I'm husband now. I'm whatever now, and you're just in it, and you don't talk. You don't have the conversation about, like, I'm struggling. I'm working a lot. I am really stressed about the fact that I am the breadwinner and I need to take care of my family, or just the fact that, like, whatever. And then your wife or your spouse is like, I'm struggling. I'm struggling with the fact that I'm the primary one taking care of the children, all their activities, scheduling all the appointments, going to all the events, needing to know. My mental load is different. When you don't have the conversation, you don't know. And you think the other one's okay when you're not. You know what I mean? And that's when you don't have the harmony, because no one's talking. You're just doing.
Yeah, and those sometimes those conversations are you avoid those conversations because they have the potential to turn into conflict. They can. Or you just sometimes you just don't know. Yeah. Sometimes you just don't know that the other person, that it's even a conversation that you need to have. Yeah. And if you feel like it's going to turn into conflict, it's still something to kind of preface and say, hey, like, is this something we should talk about? Like, what do you think? You know what I mean? And set a time to have that conversation. But we jump right into these roles, whether it's in our relationships, whether it's at work, whatever, and we just do, and we don't stop and pause and try to find some, some harmony. Okay. So, I want to ask you about, Amanda. So I did a podcast with Chris Norris. He's a retired guy. He's a retired chief. But he's also the mindfulness and meditation, kind of, guru for Consequence of Habit, which is a nonprofit that, helps recovering alcoholics and things like that. Do you have any kind of mindfulness or meditation practice that you do?
So I'm also a certified meditation teacher and a certified yoga teacher. I don't teach yoga. I did it for my own personal awareness. I don't teach yoga, but I did it for my own personal awareness because the philosophy of yoga is it's everything to me. But so for my practice, I do meditate, not as much as I would like, but I'm bigger on, like I said, the harmony part and not forcing myself to sit in meditation if I'm not in that space. So I try to make a practice of mindfulness every day. Every day I'm mindful. That's my intention every day, is to just be mindful of just checking in with myself every morning, and like, where am I at mentally? Where's my heart space? Physically, how am I feeling? And I operate from there. So that's meeting yourself where you are. That's meeting myself where I am. So if I know that I didn't get a good night's sleep because my daughter woke up like 3 times or something, and I know I'm going to be tired that day, my to-do list is going to be very specific to whatever it is I actually have to do. Other than that, the rest goes. goes. I don't have the energy. I don't have the energy. I don't have the space, and I'm not going to force myself. I'm just in that place in life where I'm not going to force myself to do some crap that is meaningless and doesn't matter. It may be something I need to do at some point. You know what I mean? So really doing those things. But for me, my self-care practice is closing my door and no one bothered me. Like that disconnect aspect of it, because I am such an introvert. I just need quiet. So that helps me. And just going to the park and going for a walk is what I absolutely love. Every day that I'm in my office and the weather is nice, I go outside at like 11 a.m. I just time it. All right, this is my 15-minute walk time. So I make that my routine. If it doesn't happen because of the weather, I'm doing something else. I'm walking around my building. But those are some of the little practices that I do. And I love makeup, so I'll like do my makeup. I'll make sure that I get dressed. That self-care, especially going through COVID and wearing leggings and like sweaters all the time, I make sure I actually put some clothes on, because that's self-care to me, and doing my makeup and hair, because that's self-care to me. And getting my nails done is a favorite too. But yeah, I definitely try to sprinkle little moments throughout my day. I know we talked previously about lighting the candles, and I know, Dean, you said you do that too sometimes in your shower. I do that all the time because it's just the quickest thing. Light my candle. I'm gonna take a shower any damn way. Let me just make it that much more peaceful and light a candle, right? But yeah, I don't do anything huge. I do have like a weekend planned away for like myself to like, really just the quiet, because I love the quiet. Other than that, for me, it's micro practice every day. That's what's been consistently working. Yeah.
I think, I don't know, man, this idea of like meeting yourself where you are. I guess, I don't know. I think we probably do it, Matt, but I'll give you an example. So, we had a dining in for the CPO birthday last night, and I literally woke up in my tux on the couch with my boots still on. And then I had to play a volleyball game this morning. So I definitely met myself where I was at this morning. I was like, oh my God, I do not feel like doing this. But I think that on a normal day, that's a cool concept, right? Like, let me take a few moments. Let me take 5 minutes and like, all right, where am I at right now? Like, where's my head at? What do I have to do today? What's on the calendar that I have to get done? And then what can I do that's additive, or what can I retract that I don't necessarily have to do based on kind of where I'm at when I kind of do that self-assessment, right? I don't think I certainly don't do that on a daily basis. I mean, maybe sometimes, right? But it's more like a checklist. It's like the to-do list, regardless of how I feel kind of thing.
So then that's what we do first, right? The to-do list comes first, and then maybe we'll get to checking in with ourselves. But what if you check in with yourself first, and then create your to-do list? Because guess what? Your to-do list is going to be more strategic, because I know myself enough to know I'm going to get my shit done. Yeah. Right. But I'm going to get the most important things done, because I'm also finding the harmony and minding myself while I'm doing the strategic stuff. So you have to know yourself enough to know that you have responsibilities. You got to get some things done. But that does not mean, and this is why I say we need to operate in the non-binary space, that and space. It does not mean I can't take care of myself too.
Yeah. I do. Yeah, it's awesome. Hey, so I think we'll start trying to wrap it up. We're getting close to an hour here. But there's a couple things that I want to kind of talk to you about, Amanda. So I can't give you a lot of details, but I am going to kind of just throw this out there. So Matt and I are planning this thing. We'll talk to you about offline. Without knowing what it is, I would like a commitment that you will contribute.
Hello. I don't know. See, when it comes to my self-care and the harmony in my life, I need to know before I commit. I gotta make sure, so we can talk offline about it.
Yeah, we got a thing that we're doing that is charitable, and anyways, it's a long-term commitment that I think will pay some good dividends. But anyways, the reason why that's super cryptic, I know. I'll talk to you. We'll talk offline. Put it that way, right?
We'll talk. But later.
I do want to hear kind of what, number one, if you can tell us about your podcast, and then also we talked a little bit before we hit record, tonight. Kind of tell us what's next for you. Like, what are your plans? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So my podcast is all about just supporting Black women on not only their healing journey, but their empowerment journey. And also untethering from the bullshit that holds us back from living our best life and living the life we want to live. So that's what my podcast is about. And I talk to many different Black women from different spaces and talking about whether it's self-care, not diet, but like how we kind of eat or how we kind of feed our bodies in a productive way. I talk about imposter syndrome. I talk about so many different topics that the women that I work with and talk to are saying are coming up for them. And I used to do like meditations on there because I'm a meditation teacher. So I do have episodes where I'm actually leading just empowerment style meditations. But also for me coming up, growing from that, is I working on workshops. There's many different elements and things that I'm like brewing as I grow from just the podcast space, but really just growing my platform and working on my own brand. But I'm really excited to just start expanding into different spaces. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, I could totally see like a women's retreat with you leading it.
Yeah, that would be. That's something.
Right.
That's definitely something like that. So I'm working on, and just more so with women in like my area, the DMV area, like getting together for like an empowerment brunch, just to kind of have these conversations because community is so important for all of us. But when you are in a certain space, right? Like if you have a vision. If you have a vision for your life, but all these roles you get into as mom, wife, all these things, and you start working and that vision starts fading, I want you to recapture that vision and work on it. So that's really the next step I'm going in with my platform, because that's audacity. That's like saying, you know what, I got all this shit going on. However, I have this vision and I'm worthy of working on that vision. So that's really the space I'm gearing into with what I have coming
it's pretty
up.
amazing and insightful for kind of where, like, again, without being cryptic, I'm being super fucking cryptic, whatever. Like, Matt and I've been working on a couple things, right? And kind of what you just said, like being audacious enough to not give up on that vision and that dream and that like that pie in the sky, the ideal thing that you want to get done. Like, let's fucking go. Right.
Let's go.
Yeah. When you tell somebody they think you're fucking crazy, but you're like, okay, well,
that's where audacity comes in, right? Because people are going to think what they want to think. You're going to think about yourself any way you want to think, whether you're dealing with confidence issues or imposter syndrome and you're feeling like that vision can't happen. Push through. That's the untethering part. Untether from that shit that's holding you back. And it could be your limited beliefs. So you can actually have that vision come true because it's there for a reason. It was given to you for a reason. I'm very woo-woo. I'm very into spirituality. So if it's given to you, guess what? You need to start acting on it. Those are the nudges that universe gives you, that God gives you to start moving in that direction. If you haven't read The Alchemist, get it on your list. It is my favorite book. It's super quick to read, The Alchemist. It's a classic. And it's about listening to those nudges. It's a story, but it's about listening to those nudges that you receive and trusting in them and following them. And you will see how your visions come true. You will see how those visions were actually already in reality, but now you're working toward it.
Oh shit, dude.
Imposter syndrome is for anybody.
Yes.
And anybody who's following those nudges, you're going to run into that. And I've had to deal with that many times in my life. still do. I mean, as an entrepreneur and someone who's kind of forged his own path and not really done what I was supposed to do. You got to deal with that. And it comes in all levels, right? From personal level through professional and intertwined. And so that's cool that you're focusing.
And that's a conversation. Because when you hear about imposter syndrome, I'm not trying to extend this scene, but when you hear about imposter syndrome, you hear about it so much when it comes to women. It's not really talked about in men. And so many men experience imposter syndrome because, you're conditioned to kind of have this kind of, I know it all. I got it together. I'm a man, and you're not supposed to have those insecurities, but you do. I think it looks different for men than it does for women, as it does for women of color, as it does for men of color. But we all experience it at not all. Some people, I don't know who doesn't, to be honest with you. But many of us experience it in some way, shape, or form. But I think it's a conversation that men need to have more of with other men, because it is so pervasive and it happens and they don't know it.
Yeah, I think, this isn't unique to men, but I'll speak from my experience. And that is that, when you talk about imposter syndrome, it comes to what it's easy to call haters, right? Like, am I worthy of putting myself out there? Am I brave enough to put myself out there, knowing that, motherfuckers gonna be talking, right? And I think that if you can get past that, then that's when you can actually do some pretty great shit, So, because nobody's perfect,
and recognizing that you're still doing some great shit, like you are. It's just because the thing about imposter syndrome is that you are actually in spaces and doing things that high achieving people do. It's just you're worried that you're still not enough in those spaces. You're worried someone's going to find out you're a fraud and that you are just winging this shit, and that behind the scenes the shit is really ugly. It's not pretty. You know what I mean? But that's the part of it. That's how it's supposed to be. Like, who knows it all? And if they do, you have a problem.
Start affecting internal of what you're doing, right?
Yes.
They have nothing to do.
Yes.
If you were on an island and you decided to build a shelter, are you going to listen to what people think? No, you're going to build a shelter, right? Like, who cares?
You're going to build a shelter. Exactly. Shut up, seagulls. Water crashing.
So that's a very simplified example, but it's true in principle, right? It's like, if you decide to go do something, you're gonna think about what all these cluckers are saying over here, but who cares? Like, they don't have it. They're not gonna be there when you win or fail, right? They're gonna be doing their own thing. Like, the world doesn't care about you. And so, trying to,
or if they will be there, who the fuck cares?
It doesn't matter.
And it doesn't matter. But here's what you're saying too, though. Sorry, Dina, extending this.
I don't care.
What you're saying is, it's a community thing, right? It's out. Imposter syndrome is something that happens to you outside of you, but then it becomes so embedded in you. You start thinking about it and you start doubting yourself. Because just like you're saying, you're thinking about, is this person going to say this? Is that person going to think that about me? So it's something that's outside of you. So it's not necessarily coming from you. It's happening to you. It's happening to you, and you're festering and you're ruminating and you're catastrophizing. You're doing all these things.
What was that word you just said?
Makes it feel like catastrophizing. So you're just. So,
is it like a catastrophe? You're imagining a catastrophe. I got it. All right, I'm in now.
You're imagining a catastrophe, something small, and you're making it bigger, right? So you're doing. So it's something that's happening, a whole mess. But this thing is happening to you, and you're starting to internalize it. But once you start to recognize that it is happening to you, it's outside of you, then you can start taking your power back and start really changing that narrative in your head. Regarding that, I do plan on doing maybe like a master class on imposter syndrome, because it's something I dealt with, and occasionally I still deal with it, but I'm in the mode of like, fuck you, I'm great, I know myself enough, but it takes time to get
pretty
there.
Great, man.
So it's always
no
like
shit. I think that
thanks, Steve.
I am slowly getting to this place where if you're not, if the words that you're saying aren't "how can I help," then I don't give a fuck. You can get out of my face, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm talking about some vision, something I want to do, and if you're telling me like all the problems with it and like why it's not ever going to happen or why I'm not worthy of doing it, then you can go the fuck on. That's kind of where I'm at, in my life at this point. You know what I mean? So
where everybody needs to,
right? Isn't that a beautiful place to be?
Where everybody needs to get to as fast as possible. But like you said, I mean, it's a process and it takes time to get there because you have to go through those things and figure them out for yourself in order to be in an internal space where you can operate like without worrying about it, right? And,
exactly.
And it's still
Aaron calls it like it still happens, you know, but when you have that level of focus and you believe in your vision that much, like you do get that focus. Aaron calls it, is it front sight focus?
Front sight focus.
I don't know, some military.
Yeah, front sight focus.
He always would say that I have that because like when I have a goal or vision, nothing fucking matters. Nothing matters. Like I don't see shit. I know what's going on that side. Like I know I have kids. I know I have a husband. I know I have work, and those things get done because I know myself enough to know that I have responsibilities. But when that fucking focus, when I'm in this zone, like it's just unstoppable, unstoppable. But
it's awesome. Okay, The Alchemist. I wrote it down. I'm gonna read it for sure. 100%.
That's great.
Will you join us again?
Of course.
Right. We'll come up with some other harebrained topic to talk about where we need somebody to actually like have some expertise on it. All right. Hey,
this was fun. Thank you so
much.
Dude,
I just want to say thank you and miss you guys. And I'll be in the States in June. So maybe I'll shoot over and see you guys. And then I'll be there in November as long as everything goes according to plan. So, all right, dude. Matt, you got anything to close on?
No, man. I mean, this was really good. It's always good to explore the topics and get outside perspective versus, just me and you talking about it offline. So, yeah, thank you, Amanda. Really good to get that perspective. So,
thank you,
Amanda. Why don't you wrap it up and then we'll call it good.
Oh, I don't know. Well, Matt, thank you for having me. Like, this was a fun conversation, and I really do hope that the listeners get a lot from it, and that they are just men, especially that are listening to this podcast, just start having those conversations with each other regarding your self-care, and just start prioritizing that part of your life and finding the harmony in it all.
Awesome. There you go. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Namaste. All right, y'all have a good day. I'm not going to bed because I just drank a bunch of coffee, but we'll talk to you later. Good night, y'all.
Yes.
Deuces.
Bye.